Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about who's stronger between Sengoku and Akainu. Stay steady in the pursuit of your dreams and goals, guys. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. I'm going to be talking about Sengoku from his prime all the way to Sengoku of pre-time skip, and then Akainu from those same time periods. Power levels actually do matter to the Marines when it comes to picking at least the fleet admiral. The fleet admiral, they're considered the commander of the entire Marines, like military force. The way you become a fleet admiral, from what we've seen, is that you get recommended by the current fleet admirals and some other higher ups in the Marines. So maybe it's like the people in Mary Joa or like the elders. Aokiji was recommended by Sengoku to become the next fleet admiral, but Akainu, he had a lot of higher ups that wanted him to be fleet admiral. So in that situation, Akainu and Aokiji just decided to fight each other, and the Marines literally just let that happen. So and then when Akainu won the fight, he became the fleet admiral. So it shows the Marines actually care about power levels to a certain extent. Why did Akainu never fight Sengoku for the fleet admiral position and then just take his position the same way? So this is more like theory category, but it's something to think about. It could mean that Akainu's never fought Sengoku for his fleet admiral position simply because he just never thought he would win, because from what we've seen from Akainu's personality, he will literally kill Marines if they don't do what he agrees with, and Sengoku has been shown to like get on Akainu's nerves sometimes. So if Akainu was just strong enough to overpower him, then he probably would have. Like if he could just take his position with strength alone, which it's implied he might have been able to, then he probably would have done it. Or maybe there was like some hidden respect thing, or maybe it just wasn't allowed. Like maybe you can't do that. It's up in the air, but it is something that's worth noting because he fought Aokiji without any hesitation, but never fought Sengoku. Or there's a possibility that he did fight Sengoku and just never won. After Akainu and Aokiji fought, they had two vacant spots in the admiral position. So they brought in Green Bull and Fujitora. They like to have at least relative amounts of power in these positions consistently. During the previous era, there was only one admiral, and it was Sengoku. And then there was one fleet admiral named Kong. When Kong retired and Sengoku became the fleet admiral, the Marines did the same thing. They want to keep a relative amount of power in the same place. So Sengoku was so powerful that they didn't feel they had any Marine that could match his power level on their own and just have one admiral like they did when Sengoku was there. So they brought three guys in. They had Aokiji, Akainu, and Kizaru all fill the spot that just Sengoku by himself left. So this is like a highballed feat right here if you look at it this way. If you say all three of them, Aokiji, Akainu, and Kizaru, are relative in power, then you could highball prime Sengoku to being 3 times more powerful than Akainu. Now that's a highball statement because it's going off of an assumption that they put the 3 of them there because they wanted it to be an equal level of power. I mean, it's possible that the Marines said, you know what, maybe we should have it more powerful, and that's why they put 3 people there, but it's something that's interesting and definitely worth talking about. And I mean, there's other things in the series that kind of support this being true. Sengoku was relative to prime Roger, and then Akainu was getting thrashed by a sick, dying, like massively damaged Whitebeard, so a much weaker opponent was still stronger than Akainu when a much more powerful opponent is relative to Sengoku. Here's why I'm saying that Roger was relative to Sengoku. So this feat where you can scale Sengoku relative to Roger, it changes a little bit depending on where you see the translation. So for example, in the Viz manga, it's a little bit less concrete, where it just says you should have just brought Garp or Sengoku here because you Marines are no fun. But in the anime, there's some translations where Roger's saying, if you wanted to catch me, then you should have brought Garp or Sengoku. You can do a lot of power scaling with that. You can interpret it as Roger thinks that either Garp or Sengoku by themselves would be enough to beat Roger at that point in time. It could just be because Roger's now sick. He thinks that in his sick state, Roger and Sengoku are actually stronger than he is now, which is very possible. Another thing is he could just be saying like, they are both individually almost the exact same power as me. The fight could go either way if one of them is fighting me. If Roger's saying that, there's a lot of weight behind it because he's stated himself that him and Garp have nearly killed each other several times. He's fought side by side with Garp against really powerful pirates like Whitebeard, Big Mom Kaido. So he knows how strong Garp is and should also know how strong Sengoku is. At least that's what this statement is implying. There's a couple other translations I've seen, like there's somewhere he says, like, if you want to defeat me, you should bring Garp and Sengoku. And that could mean maybe he views it like a Batman Robin type situation where he thinks like if the two of them fight together, then they'd be able to defeat Roger by himself. Another thing is maybe he's viewing it as when he's referring to me, he's referring to himself and his whole crew. Maybe he's saying that he thinks Garp is enough to fight just him, and then if you add Sengoku to it, that'd be enough to beat the rest of Roger's entire crew. It's very possible that Roger himself is stronger than the rest of his entire crew, so like beating just Roger is a more challenging feat than beating the rest of his entire crew by yourself. Or if you want to use one of the feats where he says like he just considers that fighting Garp or Sengoku would have been a fun fight, it's hard to do scaling with that one because it's so loose and vague. You could say, okay, well maybe that at least puts Sengoku relative to Odin because Roger thought that fighting Odin would be fun as well. Another way that you could scale Sengoku is like you could scale him to being at least stronger than Prime Whitebeard, who is shown to be stronger than Odin. Capture like means like he thinks either Garp or Sengoku can actually defeat him, and Whitebeard fought Roger for 3 days and it was just an even fight, and Whitebeard wasn't able to defeat Roger during that time. So he's saying like he believes that Sengoku would be capable of doing something that Whitebeard wasn't, which would put Sengoku above Prime Whitebeard. Just the fact that some of the translations say that like Roger himself is straight up saying Sengoku could beat him, even though it's sick Roger, says a lot. In chapter 0 of One Piece, it was a chapter that Oda wrote kind of as like promotional material to the Strong World movie. It implies that Shiki might have been Sengoku's rival while Roger was Garp's rival. Like they were going out on a mission to go hunt Shiki, and Sengoku was like, Garp, you stay out of this, you know, Shiki's mine to fight. Sengoku himself straight up says that Roger's stronger than Shiki. Like there's a scene Shiki's like, hey, let me just fight Roger, okay? And then Sengoku says, dude, he would give you the hands. Like you just get whooped if you fought Roger, so don't even try it. That's just more implication that Garp's more likely stronger than Sengoku because Garp has the more powerful rival. I'm gonna reread Marineford and like study all of the feats that Sengoku had before I make a more in-depth video on this. This was just like some stuff that I had been noticing while I was reading, and I thought it would be fun to just loosely talk about it. I might make a part 2 to this video, or I'll just have Sengoku fight other people in other videos, but based off of like these kind of loose feats that I mentioned, in the previous era, Sengoku was just objectively stronger than Akainu, which makes a lot of sense because Sengoku was chosen to be the fleet admiral instead of Akainu originally. So during that time, obviously Sengoku was more powerful. He just simply had to be. Otherwise, it would have made more sense to make Akainu the fleet admiral. I mean, maybe you could argue it was something like experience, and they were saying, well, maybe they're equal power, but Sengoku is a better choice just because he has more experience. But honestly, it's just from the way the series is depicted, it seems that in the previous era, Sengoku was much more powerful than Akainu was when Sengoku became the fleet admiral, especially when you have the possibility that he was relative to Roger, and an even stronger Akainu, like in pre-time skip just 2 years ago, still couldn't fight a weak, much weaker, dying, massively damaged Whitebeard. I mean, he still couldn't beat that Whitebeard, while the previous era Sengoku was relative to a way stronger opponent. It's much more likely that in the previous era, Sengoku was a lot stronger than the previous era Akainu. And then when it comes to pre-time skip Sengoku should be stronger than pre-time skip Akainu. But now that Sengoku is retired and Akainu is implied to have become even more powerful, it's very likely that Akainu is stronger than the current Sengoku because Sengoku's like weaker than ever and Akainu's stronger than ever. That's all I wanted to say at this point in time. I know that there's way more feats within Marineford where I can give it a much more solid perspective on how strong Sengoku is, but this is just like some cool stuff that I had noticed recently while I was like reading One Piece and just wanted to make a quick video on it. So let me know what you guys think about this. It's not as like solid or in-depth as my normal power scaling videos are. I don't know, let me know if you guys like this. If you do like this, cool, we can make a lot more of them. That's just what I wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about this. And yeah, you guys have a great rest of your day.